A stable paycheck is not the absence of financial risk. It is a specific configuration of risk, one with a fixed ceiling, a compounding deficit, and terms that were set before you arrived. The difference between this arrangement and a more volatile one is not that this one is safer. The difference is that this one's costs are harder to see on a Tuesday afternoon when the direct deposit clears. Most people calculate what a job pays. Almost no one calculates what it costs. This is not a criticism. It is a structural feature of how employment is presented. The offer letter states compensation. It does not state the opportunity cost embedded in that compensation. The benefits summary quantifies the health plan. It does not quantify the ceiling on compounding inputs that gets encoded into the arrangement on day one. Every salary is two numbers. The one printed on the contract and the one that does not appear, the gap between current output and what that same unit of time could produce under a different set of terms. The first number gets deposited. The second number accumulates silently, in the background, whether or not anyone is tracking it. This is not an argument against employment. It is an argument for reading the full contract. Opportunity cost is not a complicated concept. It is simply the price of the path not taken, denominated in whatever the alternative would have produced. In the context of employment, it works like this. Every year of fixed income is a year in which the ceiling on your earnings is set externally. By a salary band, a performance review cycle, a budget approval process that does not move at the speed of your output, the ceiling is not inherently a problem. The problem is what happens when the ceiling interacts with time. Compounding requires inputs. The more inputs you feed it, the more it returns. A salary that grows at 3% annually, which is a reasonable approximation of a cost of living adjusted raise in a stable professional role, feeds compounding at a fixed rate. That rate is determined by someone else's formula, applied to a class of employees, and adjusted for organizational budget cycles that have nothing to do with your specific output. The cost does not appear on the pay stub. It is the delta between what that formula produces and what an uncapped trajectory, starting from the same point, would have produced over the same period. That delta is not hypothetical. It is a real number. It is already accumulating. And it compounds in the same direction as the salary does, forward into years you have not reached yet. The stability of employment does not eliminate this cost. It makes it invisible. And invisible costs have a specific feature. They are easy to carry indefinitely, right up until they are not. Time is the mechanism that makes the cost material. Consider two trajectories from the same starting point. Both begin at a salary of $50,000 annually. One grows at 3% per year, the stable, predictable path. The other begins at the same level but is uncapped, growing at 8% annually through a combination of compounding skill, expanding output, and unstructured upside. 8% is not an aggressive assumption. It is modest relative to what skill-based income trajectories can produce. At year 5, the gap is visible but not dramatic. The capped path reaches approximately $58,000. The uncapped path reaches approximately $73,000. A difference of $15,000 per year. At year 10, the capped path reaches approximately $67,000. The uncapped path reaches approximately $108,000. The gap has widened to $41,000 annually. At year 15, the capped path reaches approximately $78,000. The uncapped path reaches approximately $159,000. The annual gap is now over $80,000. These are not extraordinary numbers. They are the output of two different compounding rates applied to the same starting figure over time. The variable that matters is not the income level. It is the rate and how long it runs. The earlier the ceiling is accepted, the longer the deficit compounds. A 26-year-old who accepts a capped trajectory does not experience the full cost at 26. The cost accumulates quietly across the years that follow in a column that does not appear on any statement they receive. There is a reason the expensive choice feels like the responsible one. The volatile path makes its costs visible. A bad quarter is legible. A gap in income is measurable. A failed attempt at something uncapped produces a concrete number that can be pointed to and discussed. The risk is denominated in losses that appear on time, in real currency, in the present tense. The stable path hides its costs in a different register. Foregone compounding does not announce itself. A decade of accumulated deficit does not send a notification. The cost of the ceiling does not appear in the same column as the mortgage payment or the grocery bill. It lives in a parallel ledger that most people never open. This asymmetry produces a consistent behavioral outcome. The option that shows its downside clearly feels dangerous. The option that conceals its downside in the future feels safe. And because certainty has its own value, because predictability genuinely reduces short-term stress, the stable path produces real benefits that make the hidden cost easier to ignore. This is not irrationality. It is a response to an incomplete accounting. The human mind is well equipped to avoid losses it can see. It is poorly equipped to mourn compounding. It was never offered a statement for, here is the calculation structure. Step 1. Establish your current trajectory. Take your present salary. Apply a conservative annual raise rate. 3% is standard for cost of living adjustments in professional roles. 4% if you are in a higher growth sector. Project that forward over 15 years. Use a compound growth formula, starting salary multiplied by 1.03 to the power of 15. That is your terminal salary on the capped path. Now calculate cumulative earnings over that 15-year period by summing each year's output. This is your base figure. Step 2. Establish an alternative trajectory. Start from the same salary. Apply a growth rate that reflects uncapped potential. 8% is a reasonable starting assumption for skill-based income that is not bounded by a salary band. Apply the same compound formula. Project forward 15 years. Calculate cumulative earnings. Step 3. Subtract. The difference between the two cumulative totals is the opportunity cost embedded in your current arrangement over a 15-year horizon. This is not a projection of what you would definitely earn on the alternative path. It is an accounting of what the ceiling is costing you if the ceiling holds. Run this on your own numbers. Use your actual salary. Use a raise rate that matches your recent history, not the one you expect. Be conservative on both sides. The point is not to produce a dramatic figure. The point is to produce an accurate one. The output is a number. It belongs in the same mental category as your rent, your loan balance, your insurance premium. It is a term in a contract. The contract is already in effect. The calculation is the part that most people skip, not because it is difficult, but because no one handed them the form. If the number is small, the ceiling is not costing you much yet. If the number is large, you are now aware of a cost that was already real before you ran the arithmetic. The number is not a verdict. It is a term in the agreement. Most employment contracts are signed without this term being read, not because it is buried in fine print, but because it is not printed at all. It is implicit in the structure of fixed compensation. It has always been there. The calculation simply makes it visible. What the viewer does with that number is not the subject of this analysis. The number does not prescribe a direction. It does not recommend an alternative. It is not an argument for leaving or staying or changing anything. It is a price. The price of the ceiling, expressed in the currency of foregone compounding, extended across the years already committed to the arrangement. Some people will look at the number and decide the stability premium is worth it. Some will look at the same number and begin asking different questions. Both responses are valid, neither is the point. The point is that the number exists. It existed before the calculation. The calculation is simply the act of looking at it. The stability premium is real. It has value. Predictability reduces stress, enables planning, and produces a category of security that the uncapped path does not offer by default. But the stability premium is paid by the employee, not the employer. The employer benefits from the arrangement, from predictable output at a predictable cost, from the compounding value of retained expertise, from the delta between what the employee produces and what the salary band allocates. The structure is not adversarial. It is simply a contract with terms that favor one party's compounding over the other's. The person who benefits most from your preference for certainty is not in the room with you right now. That is not an accusation. It is a clause in the agreement.